it'd been so easy just to walk away from it and say that this is not working, but we didn't. And I think the initial 2 and 3 years, no one sees that bit, the struggle to get it going, to get it moving. And then once you get it moving, the momentum to keep it going, no one sees that bit. And you've got to have a little bit of faith, I think, in what you're doing.
Welcome to Your Mind, Your Business, the podcast that dives into the real grit of entrepreneurship. I'm your host, Carina McLeod, entrepreneur and fitness fanatic. And today we have a special guest, James Sweeney from EBC. Welcome, James.
Well, Essex Boot Camp. Well, yeah, thank you, yeah.
So I'm excited to talk to you today. I kind of know you from where you're at right now, but I guess the audience are probably questioning who is James. So I'll let you introduce yourself, and then I'm going to hit rewind.
God, what a massive question that is. I'm not really too sure I know myself, to be honest. So, but obviously, from a fitness side of things, how long have you been with EBC for?
Ooh, about 7 or 8 years.
It's quite a while. That is quite a while, isn't it?
It is.
So outdoor fitness. So we've been in the outdoor fitness game, I think it's coming up for 20 years, which in itself is a really long time, isn't it? And I think I've been in fitness for 25 years, I think, like a little bit longer than that. So been at it for a long time. Like you sort of question sometimes, I'm still in that industry and not getting any younger. So it's like, but still enjoy it, still massively enjoy it.
So 20 years of running Essex Boot Camp or EBC.
Yeah.
And 25 years kind of been in that industry. I'm guessing, 20 years is a long time, which is fantastic. So firstly, congratulations.
To do anything, it's a long time, right?
Yeah.
And I think you've got to really love something to do it for that long.
Yeah, 100%.
Because it becomes, whatever you do, I think in the end becomes a little bit, you've got to be somewhere in a certain time. It becomes monotonous, doesn't it? So if you really, really enjoy something, I think, and you love something, then that gives you sort of sustainability and longevity in it.
Yeah, definitely.
So I'd give that some credence to why we're still here.
Yeah.
And still doing what we do.
And still smiling about it as well.
Still smiling. I will add as well, when we first started, Glynn and myself used to have a little competition about how long we could go into the winter wearing shorts, right? And I will say that those days are long gone. Like that went about sort of 7 or 8 years ago. It's just like, no, it's too cold now. We're getting a little bit long in the tooth for that sort of thing. So,
yeah, that's it. Age is taking over.
Exactly.
Becoming wiser.
Exactly that.
So we're talking about outdoor fitness, and outdoor fitness seems to be, probably people listening today can understand a bit more about outdoor fitness. But I'm guessing if we hit rewind 20 years ago, that probably wasn't a really well-known sort of activity. So I'm keen to find out, go to the start very much of your entrepreneurial journey, because when you go to the start of your entrepreneurial journey, did you ever think of yourself that you would become a business owner and set up a business and have what you have today?
I think if we dial all the way back, I think it was 2007, both Glynn and myself were very passionate about fitness. So it all came from being passionate about health and fitness and well-being, and basically trying to do something different, because kind of to paint the scene, there was nothing like EBC back then. As simple as it seems as an outdoor fitness initiative and training provider, no one was doing it. It wasn't a thing. You had BMF British Military Fitness in London that were doing their thing, and they were quite well known, but there was no one, in our part of the world doing anything like that. And it was almost kind of like people would literally laugh and be like, it's outside. And it's like, yeah, it was quite a hard sell. What do you do when it rains? It's like, we crack on. And changing that paradigm was a big deal. It was quite, the first couple of years, it was quite tough. But going back to your question, I think we were both very passionate about fitness. Glynn and I both went to school together, so we've known each other for a long time. We're both very sporty. And it was actually a mutual friend. We lost a friend in our early 20s. Glynn was in the Marines. I was come out of university in the fitness industry. And at this funeral, we mentioned doing something together, which is quite strange in itself. He said, look, I'm in the Marines. Something had happened where he wasn't granted leave to go to this funeral, which really upset him. And he was like, I'm thinking about coming out. And the seed was kind of planted then to do something. And then probably about a year later, an opportunity popped up, and we started running sessions in Essex And originally it was just Chelmsford, Braintree and Brentwood, and it kind of went from there.
Did you have, like, so you were at uni, did you then go into employment first? Like,
Yeah.
so you have had like
Yeah.
a corporate role, so you know.
Yeah, so I exactly that. So I was in a big commercial gym, and I worked out very quickly. There are a couple of bits actually as part of that journey that always spring into my mind. So I worked out very quickly that wasn't for me because I didn't like the model because I thought it failed a lot of people. So to give you an idea, the club I was at the time, I think it had a membership base of about 3,500 to 4,000 people.
Wow.
Big club, huge. And there were two things that happened there that put question marks in my head pretty quickly within the first sort of year. Number one was we've got 4,000 members, 3,500 members. We've got 20 treadmills. And in my head, I'm like, well, how's everybody training? We want everybody to train, don't we? I remember being in a morning huddle, and the GM at the time was like, hitting his numbers and doing his job effectively. But the model was, in a nutshell, which I got from this conversation, that obviously we don't want all the members there, do we? We don't want all the members training, and that did not sit very well with me. I wanted to do something where I got people results and I got them training. That's why I got into this, to get people to where they want to be and help people. And when I kind of got a chink that wasn't the game, it didn't sit very well with me at all. And that then you start to thinking, is there a better way? Is there another way of doing this? Can we get, passion wise, can you get at people in a different way? Can we change what's going on? And that's where it started, I think.
I love that, because actually with Essex Boot Camp, and I know about Essex Boot Camp because of course I'm a member, is that you don't necessarily have that limit then, and you want everyone, as many people that have signed up to be joining those sessions at one time.
Well, I remember we had a spreadsheet, and this was really, really early on to basically to map attendance and footfall. And it was really, really simple, to really basic Excel spreadsheet, but it gave you an idea of what business we've done in the morning, in the afternoons and in the evenings, so where we saw the majority of our clients. And more importantly to me, along each column, it was how many people you saw a day. So between just me and Glynn at that time, and you've got to remember that the model back then predominantly to service 20, 30 people, that was pretty much maybe 40 people if you want to work 6 days a week as a PT, right? There was a limit to what you could earn. So that was the second thing. So there was this broken model, and then there was a limit, there was a threshold to how many people you could support. And that was another thing. I was like, can we get this in a different way? And that, going back to that spreadsheet, I started to see very quickly, as part of what we were doing, we could support more people. Doing it this way, doing it in groups. The USP for us at the time was it's outside. That was our thing. But we could support more people. And over a period of time, it's saying, well, if we open up more sessions, we get more trainers involved, how many more people can we support? We're still trying to answer that question, by the way.
But that's the interesting part, right? Of the point of, okay, do you want to do it and have a business where it's just yourself or Glynn? Or do you then want a business that you can then grow and scale? And I guess that is the question that you asked yourselves, and you've got to make that first hire, right? What was that like?
Really, really, really tough. Really, really tough. I mean, between the two of us, both Glynn and myself, we're very different in terms of, we used to get called yin and yang, basically. And it's pretty obvious who was who.
I still call you yin and yang.
So, we used to get called yin and yang. And basically, like, I think what we did do really well, we're both good at what we did. That was, by the by, we'd never have lasted any length of time if we weren't any good at what we did. But I think we provided a really well-rounded solution. And it was just us doing the sessions back then. We did everything. And it's like, we made a conscious decision early, right? You have a lot of people talking about, their self-brand and promoting themselves. And we were like, well, we felt to make this work that we needed to sit behind a brand that we could, put standards into, operating procedures, teach people how to do things the way that we saw a session, learn from our experience, empower people with that, and then they could sit behind the brand as well. And it's sort of best practice. So we made a conscious decision quite early that was what we were going to do.
So just on that though, is did you know all about that before? Because that's quite a lot to sort of think about, right? Okay. If you've just never set up a business before, to then go, right, we need all our standing operating procedures, we need standards, we need all of this. Was that just something that...
I think you're looking back, you look back at your life, don't you? There's a really good chat by Steve Jobs where he paints this picture of looking back at your life and joining the dots up. There are jobs that I did where you take little bits from different jobs and different instances, and some of the operating procedures, I'd kind of run a contract at a corporate gym for a while, and I'd kind of like, oh, that was good. I quite the way that works. So borrowed bits and pieces along the way, and then I hate to say, I looked at a couple of franchise models, and obviously the biggest franchise in the world, probably, I don't know whether it still is today, but back then was McDonald's. So like, I'm thinking to myself, how do we get out there quickly? And what's the strategy going to be behind? We've got a brand. We made sure we had a brand. We had quite a good name. We'd built it up between us over 2 or 3 years. If we're going to attract people like ourselves and give them a good enough opportunity to do this with us as opposed to doing it on their own, answer that question. Give them a brand to sit behind. Always said it's like we give you a vehicle to sit in. You've got to drive it, but we'll give you all the bits and pieces. Is that a good enough acquisition? Can we answer that question successfully? And it was that we were thinking to get ourselves out quickly. And I think we did quite a good job at that. I think if we go back to, I think we started up in about 2007. I think we managed to get out and have quite a good network of sessions quickly by, when was the Olympics in London? Was it 2012?
2012, yeah.
So in my head, I was like, we need to get out. I think we had a date in a diary. So we need to be out and have a network of sessions by, and it was in line with the Olympics. You know, I don't know why that was, but I remember that being in my mind as a...
Manifested it.
Yeah. But so it was by design. It wasn't... There's some organic growth there because, again, at that moment in time, timing's huge, right? The outdoor fitness thing was a hard sell at first, going back to the start of the conversation, but it became a thing. It became... There's a big insurgency and all of a sudden getting outside. And there's also some stats. It's quite sad, isn't it? When you start thinking about it, there's some stats that stay in your head. And I remember when I left university, there was a stat on the trajectory of people going from PE into basically, I think it was exercising about 3 times a week. You know what these stats like? It was something like 2.7 times a week or something. And the stat back in early 2000s was less than 2% of the working populace was exercising 3 times a week.
Wow.
Less than 2%. And that was one of the things in my head. I'm like, surely there's got to be something else. The gym model doesn't work for lots of people.
No.
So what can we do? What can we do to influence that? And it's still, even today, I think, I haven't looked at it for a while, but I looked at something more recently, and I think the stat now is still under 20%, or at least it was about 10 years ago. It was something like 19.8% of the working population exercises 3 times a week. So you've got 80% of the working population not exercising regularly.
That's crazy.
So from an industry's perspective, there's room for manoeuvre here.
Yeah.
That's not good enough, is it? I don't think so anyway.
No, it's opportunity.
And the interesting bit for me is out of that 8%, I think, out of the people that were polled, I think it was 70% of those people, if they were going to do something in terms of a fitness intervention or a health and fitness intervention, would like to be outside. So again, they're the sort of things that stay in your mind when you're like, what direction are we going in business-wise? What are we going to do? How are we tackling things? They're the things that are in the forefront of your mind, I think.
You come across as somebody that's kind of got it together in terms of your ideas, right? But when you're going through all of that, like you're going, right, okay, we're going to take this franchise model. We've got we need to expand. We've got this date in mind. What's going also through your head? Like,
oh God, this is like, you're talking about someone that the creative process is messy, right? We've condensed that into, it's messy and it's not linear. So you post-it notes, I'm a merchant for having an idea, sticking it on a post-it note, that'll be kicking around on my desk for maybe 2 years. But like, it's a graveyard of ideas, this post-it notes, and you know, would that work in a different instance or a different time? So yeah, I mean, you know, from yourself, from some of the people you talk to, like having an idea is one thing, making it fly and giving it legs is a completely different thing. And it might be a great idea at the wrong time. You look at a great example, I think, is COVID. Imagine coming up with in any other time, a fantastic idea that would have flown. COVID hits, just squashes the whole thing.
Yeah.
And timing's huge, right? Timing's absolutely huge, especially in the creative process of business and being an entrepreneur, I guess, as well.
Yeah, definitely.
But you're dead right. Sorry, I've condensed that part of it. It sounds really clinical. It wasn't at all. It was messy. We made loads of mistakes. You know, but you've got to learn, haven't you?
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. When you were, so you've got this idea. Let's say you're like, right, that idea's got legs. I'm going to give it a go. What goes through your mind? Are you like feeling quite comfortable, or is it we've taken, because there's always risk involved, right? 100%. Are you quite comfortable with that, or what goes through your mind as you kind of go and execute one of your post-it notes?
So you always think to myself, like when you get asked questions, like good questions like that, you use yourself as a reference point later. We had this idea that we thought was great, me and Glynn, and it was very much off of Glynn's background. But the amount of times in the first 2 years, and he'll tell you the same, you're sitting there, you get there at quarter to 6 in the morning, it's still dark. You're sitting there, you've got a session worked out, 10 to, 5 to, no one turns up. And it's like, it would have been so easy after 2 months when that wasn't, you know, the fitness industry can be quite faddy. Like, it'd been so easy just to walk away from it and say that this is not working, but we didn't. And I think the initial 2 and 3 years, no one sees that bit, the struggle to get it going, to get it moving. And then once you get it moving, the momentum to keep it going, no one sees that bit. And you've got to have a little bit of faith, I think, in what you're doing and a bit of belief in what you're doing. And for me, it was, I think, because you do question, that's part of the process, right? Is it going to get traction? Is it going to work? Is it going to start paying the bills? Because there's that obviously as well. It's a must. I mean, I guess we both had a bit of faith, but I'd say there's 2 things that spring to mind. Glynn and myself are very different. And I think someone quite smart said to me a while back that to run a business, you need to have people around the table that have got things that you haven't got and that you trust, and that's massive. And I think even early on, me and Glynn are quite different, and we probably filled a lot of spaces, you know, and complemented each other quite well. And I think that got us down the road a bit. And then going back to the passion about what we were doing and belief in what we were doing. You
raised a really good point there, and I guess a lot of people listening can resonate with that, and that's the bit that's not shared. So you've got like all people attending Essex Boot Camp thinking, yeah, the numbers are here, and you've got everybody, that sea of red, all in their shirts and that.
Oh yes, hard fought.
But that moment, the first 2 years that keeps you going is that tough bit, right? That nobody sees.
No, no. Especially today as well with social media, everything looks instantaneous, doesn't it? And self-gratifying. Business is not like that. And I think anything worth having isn't like that. Training in particular, you know, everybody wants a quick fix. You know, everybody wants the quick. There is no quick fix. You've got to be consistent. You've got to work hard, and you know, you've got to have some discipline about you ultimately. And that's, people don't want to hear that. They want to know what you did and how it worked overnight. It didn't work overnight.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that's a bit of a tough one to swallow for people. But at the same time, I think that's what separates you. You know, it would have been very easy to walk away 6 months in, even a year in. I think, God's honest truth, I think me and Glynn were even 18 months into the business. I remember a conversation before Christmas one year, and I was like, mate, we can take some more money this month, and it was like something like 600 quid a month, like, and we were working all the hours under the sun to get it going, and to get it off the floor. And I think in whatever you do, business wise, unless you know you're quite lucky and you hit something at the right time, but I think there's that bit where you've got to give a lot and not get a lot back.
Sacrifice, really, isn't it?
Yeah, massive.
Definitely. And you know, you talk about that kind of. Well, this is one of the reasons for this podcast, is because you've got, especially with social media, all these shiny success stories, like it is overnight, and they don't see the actual pain that comes from running a business,
and the
right?
grind. Yeah, the grind. There's definite grind, I think.
You know, and how do you kind of manage that, right? Because you're going to have those days where, and I know you've got Glynn, you kind of got that, you balance each other out, but how do you manage that from a mental perspective?
God, that's a really tough question. It's a good question, but it's a tough question. So a few years back before COVID, and it's another guy from school actually, someone I've known for a long time, and Glynn's known for a long time. Sean Curran got involved on the finance side of things, so I'd always kind of looked after as best I could. He got involved in the business as a director, and he's really good commercially as well, and that really took a bit of a weight off from that side of things, that you've got also another set of opinions that's been there and done it. You know, he's a safe pair of hands. Another opinion that's valid. He's done some stuff in business to give him some credence about, you know, making decisions, and that helps as part of the decision making process. Or when me and Glynn have got a relationship where we can have a vent at each other, you know, like, and that's part of our dynamic, and it works for us. But almost feel like Sean sometimes is like the referee. He's like calming. Do you know what I mean? Like he's got like another input, and it's a good input. It's a positive input. So that's huge on a I guess like a team kind of aspect. And then personally, I think you've got to have some things to take you out of work and thinking about work all the time, because as I'm sure you can attribute as well, like I feel a bit envious sometimes of people that work a 9 till 5, because it's always sitting on your shoulder.
Mm-hmm.
There's always something going on, and I think I work that out quite late. I think I have an issue, I think, with I have a personal connection, an emotional connection to the business, because it was mine and I started it with someone else. That's not good. It's not healthy sometimes. It's hard to sort of to detach and think of it as a business. There was actually, I think it was about 2 years ago, someone said something to you. You know when something says something and it's something to you and it's really poignant. A guy that I'd been training for a bit, it's really nice guy, very switched on as well, like career bloke, but really nice guy. He kind of had moved into the area, and he'd been to sessions, and he was kind of looking at things from with no connection, like a bit of a blank connection. And he went to me, you know, I think like EBC will be like, when you're not in it anymore, I think it will still go, and it will do other things. And I was like, sorry, because I'd never considered it being a thing without me in it.
Yeah.
And it didn't sit very well. Being honest, it didn't sit very well. I felt like I'd been dunked underwater for about a couple of days, because I identify, I guess, with some of myself as the business.
Yep.
Which I know is not a good thing. So I've had to work a little bit on maybe doing something with that and trying to detach a little bit. But I think, ironically, training helps, you know, as a bit of a mental wash down and as a release. I do feel a little bit obliged though to train, because it's like there's no way on earth there's a connection back there straight away, right? I wouldn't be able to stand at the front of a group of people, ask them to do all and sundry, and not be able to do it to a level myself. I'd feel like an absolute charlatan. I couldn't do it. And I don't know why that is either. I just think it's probably a bit of and it's different for different people. It's an integrity thing for me.
100%. Yeah.
I'm not saying I'd be the fastest or the quickest or whatever, but I need to be able to do it to a level. And I know Glynn's the same with that. You know, that's something we've tried to install, which is a separate thing, values wise, in the guys as well, by having, you know, making sure we had a fitness test and all that sort of thing. But yeah, that's big. And then I think what I've realised over the last few years is I need something to completely disassociate. So I try and play a bit of golf, and if I'm not very good, but if I play golf, or sometimes I play with my son or whatever, I try not to look at my phone and just have some downtime. But it's tough. You have to work at that.
Do you ever fully switch off?
I'd like to say yes, but no. I don't think so. There's always, I think, it's really tough to just describe it to someone else that maybe hasn't run a business or operated a business that ultimately you care about and you're passionate about. So you never really, it's always that little gremlin on your shoulder, isn't it? I was at an assembly recently. You know, when someone says something, you're like, oh, I absolutely love that. I'd love to try and be like that. And the analogy was, it was my little boy's school assembly, that the head teacher was talking about dealing with stress, and I can't remember how she'd come across the story, but she was talking about this particular guy that when he goes home at night, he tries not to take any of his stress from the working day into his house. And there's a plant outside his house, and he tries to hang all the stress, all the anxiety of the day, all the pressure of the day on this plant by touching the plant. Then he walks into the house, and I was like, I love that. But I think my tree or plant would be dead within a month.
I was about to say that. Oh my goodness.
I love it.
All shriveled up.
As an analogy, I really, really liked it, but that's a really, really tough thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
And you'll be able to
Yeah.
attribute it, right? That's a really hard thing and something that I really struggle with.
Yeah.
Really, really struggle with.
Well, the interesting part there is, like you say, almost the part that enables you to switch off is almost what you're doing for others. So
yeah.
There's a complete overlap there in itself.
Someone described it to me a few years ago as a busman's holiday, and I was like, that's excellent. It's like, at the end of the day, there's a direct link back into why we do what we do. You know what I mean? So, yeah, and that was one of the things that I've always trained. You know, we were talking on the way up. I've always trained. It's part of who I am, and I'm appreciating as I get older, I'm needing to change that slightly, but hopefully it will be something that I always do.
Yeah.
But it's hard, that part of it, and that part of running a business, no matter how large or small, is really, really tough. And I think unless you've done it yourself, you can't really get a feel for what that's like.
Yeah, 100%. And so, I mean, that's a challenge in itself, but I'm keen to go into more of the challenges that you've gone through. And I'm guessing you mentioned COVID earlier on.
Oh God, yeah.
So I guess that impacted yourselves to quite huge. Yeah.
So you're then in a situation, aren't you, where it's like, how do you stay relevant? We're an outdoor group fitness intervention. Yes, we can go outdoors, but we can't do anything in a group. And we're probably in a better situation than gyms, because they just got completely shut down. But because of the niche we sat in, we got no support whatsoever from a financial perspective from the government, and the bits and pieces that were put in place and mechanisms that were put in place, we didn't configure into any of that, which is true. Fair enough. It kind of is what it is, but there wasn't much out there for us. So it's then like, how do we stay relevant? And not only how do we stay relevant really quick to make sure that, we can survive. So there were a couple of really sleepless nights dialing back to that. I remember the conversations and ultimately at the time, we were in Cambridge. We had quite a few locations running. All the guys that run the franchises are all looking at you to say, what are we going to do? And we had some strong suits in there. There were some good guys in the business coming up with ideas, but at the end of the day, it falls on Glynn, myself, and Sean, and obviously Wes was quite pivotal as well in it back then. Actually, there's a little story on that where Wes claimed, I think, some of the strategy to get us out with an app. He'd have it that it was his idea, but it definitely wasn't. I'll pull him on that when I see him as well. So it was, going back to your question, it was a tough there was a couple of nights where we had a conversation. Fortunately, we just started using a CRM system, right, to basically collate people's data. And we were linking a payment gateway to that, and it was all really well protected. It had a firewall against it. It was secure and all the rest of it. And there was an option that Sean had found to extend that as an app, which is what we currently use. And there was some facility within that app to program for people. So I was playing around with the idea of putting programs in, and how would we program. Then it was like, well, these waypoint workouts. So staying within the confines of what we were allowed to do. So people could meet in twos. We could organise the meeting in twos, and and then give people a workout via the app. Try and keep it in keeping with what we are as a business. And these waypoint workouts were born pretty quickly. And we tried to put some procedure around that and then roll them out. And we managed to do that quite quickly. I think if someone had said to me, in terms of attrition on your membership, this is what it's going to be, I'd have literally bitten your hand off, I think, because I think we did quite well in the pivot and trying to keep people, number one, active. But it wasn't just that, it was the community and the amount of people that were like, I'm so looking forward to coming out and seeing someone else, so getting the workouts done, that was that took a long time to kind of over that period of 2 days, like, come up with an idea and then try and execute. But I think we did pretty much with what we had, we did it as best we could, definitely. But it's that there's a big part of kind of being creative and then being agile and trying to sort of like, well, what can we do? Instead of just a couple of the guys in the team were like, oh, we're going to have to just cancel everybody's membership. And I'm like, well, no, like, that's not the way to look at this. we've got to try and be a bit pragmatic and come up with something
Yeah.
and try and support. Because there was a willingness from the guys to, members to come on one and train still,
Mm-hmm.
but it's trying to do something that fitted, and that tick the boxes as to what we were. And I think like I said, I'm quite pleased, quite proud of what we did, to be fair.
Yeah, I mean, and that there's lots of pressure in different ways, right? You're saying like you got where you become that responsible one for everyone, like for all the franchisee owners and all the different sites. But then you got that responsibility where you got to make a quick decision.
Yeah.
It's no longer sort of looking at your post-its for 2 years. It's like
No.
You've got to go with it and pick the right thing and run.
We were fortunate that we had an option on an app. I think so we were fortunate from that point of view. And again, we got a little bit lucky with the timing. There was functionality that we weren't using that we started to dip into and use. So, and in terms of a workout, I think it worked really well as well. Like for what it was at that particular moment in time, I think it works well. But yeah, it was those 2 days. I don't think I slept for a couple of nights, just laying there, sort of looking at the ceiling, thinking, what, literally?
Yeah.
Because you're in a position like when was it, the first one? It's like upwards of 15 years into a business, and it's like it could all go.
Yeah.
It could literally all go in days.
Yeah.
And that's like scary. It's a really scary thought process, like, and to be in it. And I know a lot of people everybody had their struggles during lockdown, right? But ultimately building the business up from nothing and then staring down the barrel of losing it, for things that are completely out of your control.
That's it.
Huge.
And that's where you said you've got an emotional attachment, whether you should have an emotional attachment, you're going to, right? You've built a business from scratch and you've had to make sacrifices to grow that business. So as you say, to lose all of that, whereas other people, that's the part that's not seen. Because how can it be seen if somebody's not been in your shoes to know what that really feels like?
Yeah, it's really you can't really, I don't think, kind of put it into words. It's it is tough. Like putting any business up, I think, from a standing start is really, really tough. And we were bootstraps, right? God's honest truth, I think me and Glynn put the dizzy heights of like 300 quid in each to start a business. Like ridiculous, like absolutely ridiculous to do that from a standing start.
Yeah.
And literally, you look back at your younger self, and you just feel like you dragged it and kicked it into shape, really.
Yeah.
Yeah, crazy, absolutely crazy.
And then, so I know you're not much of a social media person.
No, I'm
which
not.
I think is probably a good thing, in the sense of like, because where I'm going to go sort of talk about is the noise that comes right from different people on social media, and we mentioned about those overnight successes, but you've also got competitors or other businesses kind of emerging, right? How do you kind of keep focused on what you're doing when outdoor fitness all of a sudden becomes more known? So you're no longer the Essex Boot Camp, where you are Essex Boot Camp, but there's other competitors appearing. How do you manage that and just not get distracted by what's going on around you?
It's really tough. I think you have to just try and stay very much in your lane, and focus on it. It's so easy when you start looking at what's popular, competitors analysis and all that sort of thing. But I think one of the most important things, and again, this is something you look at things and things stay with you in life. And I can't remember where it came from, but I remember I really liked an outlook. I can't remember whose it was, but essentially they were talking about attracting people in to work with you and what you need, what mix you need to have people in to work with you. And there were 3 things: autonomy, so that people, they've got an idea of what they're doing and what they're about, what they're delivering, but they're left to their own devices to run their aspects. So you get people that are good enough to work autonomously. The other one was mastery. So you're in something where you can get better at it, and there's definitely an element of mastery with instructing a group of people, and there's so many instances where guys have come in, they've been good instructors, but over time they become more honed at what they do, sharper at what they do. That happened. You can see that a lot over time from where they started at. And then having purpose. So anchored to a purpose, and the bit around purpose was key to the question, because purpose is big, and I think we set our stall out to be an outdoor training provider. If we start watering that down and coming inside and doing, it changes the dynamic a little bit. We're always very, very conscious of that. So staying true to what we are. So you don't want to then kind of be contradictory and start, mixing up. I think it blurs the lines a little bit. So we've tried to stay very much true to what we are purpose-wise. And we've got a social media guy at the moment. He's a really well thought out guy. He's successful in his own right in business. Just after Christmas, actually, we had a chat about the messaging and what we're putting out on social media, because there is so much noise, particularly in the fitness industry. And it's almost like, I don't know, I feel like it's got into a bit of a state over the last 10 years where it's almost like whoever shouts the loudest about how great they are. And it's like, I don't want to partake in any of that. Do you know what I mean? I was always brought up to kind of let your work talk for you. So it goes completely, sitting in front of a camera telling everybody that I'm awesome just doesn't sit very well with me at all. I would very much prefer to go and talk to 10 people that we train on a regular basis, let them tell you what we're all about.
Yeah.
That's the way, values wise, I think, and Glynn's a bit like that as well. And I think we never really subscribed to, the personal brand bit. And I'm not saying that it doesn't fit for some other people. It just didn't work for us. And going back to the original, question about brand, we, instead of putting our own names up there, we put a brand up, and we sat behind that brand, and we're invested in the brand. And I think that's for me, that's important. It's 20 years important, nearly. So I think a lot hinges off the back of that. And then going back to the social media guy, he brought our attention back to what are you? What is it you're trying to achieve? And we started to look at core values. What is EBC from a core values perspective? And we've tried to start to operate on social media out of that again, and not get diluted.
Yeah.
So there is thought process behind.
Yeah.
What we're doing, how we're trying to do things. And I think what he was saying to us and some of the feedback on the posts was that there's so much noise on social media of people talking about, I don't know, whatever's popular. I've got a 16-year-old daughter, and I hope she doesn't watch this, by the way. She will hate this, but this is payback, Ella, for some of the TikTok videos you've done, by the way. But she's going to the gym at the moment, and every time she goes to the gym, I'm like, oh, great. Like, what are you doing tonight? She's always training glutes. Right? She's always training, because everybody wants a round bum, right? So I'm like, maybe we should mix it up a little bit, do a bit of cardio. And I get deadpans, but obviously that's fashionable at the moment, isn't it? Everybody wants, a bum, right? Not to kind of like cast massive sweeping generalizations, but that seems to be the thing at the moment. And I think there's a lot of that goes on. After you've been in anything for a long time, you see these kind of fads come in, and we're trying to, I guess, not get drawn into that, and we're trying to stick to our guns and what we are, which is a blend really of, strength, body weight, and cardio activity, like delivered really, really well outside. It's really simple. What we do is try and do it really well.
And you do it well. Like, it's interesting. I go and do all sorts of races, and sometimes when I do that with my friends that I've made through Essex Boot Camp, we'll go and wear our Essex Boot Camp tops, and you end up bumping into people in all places, and you're like, oh yeah, you're part of Essex Boot. I have no idea who they are, but because they're wearing an Essex Boot Camp shirt, you're all of a sudden like, I don't know, you're definitely not within Essex when you bump into them. And there's that kind of community as well that you've created, as well as a brand.
We talk about this. Me and Glynn have actually spoken about this morning. I think we don't lean on the community side of things enough. And again, like, we've got a really, really strong community that we want to try and bolster, but I don't think we kind of like speak about that enough. And I think that's something that we need to start to change, because it is quite powerful. And I think, like, for a range of reasons, we were talking on the way up, from the station about what keeps people at the coalface, what keeps people training, and community, and having friends that train that you can lean on a little bit when you don't fancy it, and you're not feeling motivated, which comes and goes. You've got that plug-in, which is huge, absolutely huge, to keep you doing anything. And I think the community side of it is a really, really big deal. And I think I think about this sort of stuff quite a bit. I kind of link it back to the business was born out of Glynn's background in the military, right? And it was a fuse between what he was doing and me with sports science. And I didn't really understand. I didn't see. We were talking about having an idea and it having legs, right?
Mm-hmm.
Having the ability to maybe jump up and get traction in the market. I've got to be honest. The first 2 years we were doing it, I'm not sure I saw the bigger picture. It wasn't until we went down to. We were very lucky. We got the opportunity to go down to the Commando Training Centre at Lympstone for a connection of Glynn's in the Marines, and we took 30 people down there. And Glynn was like, "Come on, mate, you're gonna get involved in some of this." And I was like, really? It's like, yeah. So one of the best things I've ever done. It was absolutely like superb. But one of the sessions we did was an empty school gymnasium.
Mm-hmm.
There were 30 of us, and probably 2 or 3 PTIs, and the atmosphere that was created by those trainers, I was like, this is different. This is not only is it different, there's a dynamic here that works.
Yeah.
And if we could take some of that, dial it back a little bit, and make it a little bit more digestible for consumption in sort of public use,
Mm-hmm.
there's something there.
Yeah.
And the kind of penny dropped then for me that we could do something that was a little bit different, and again, that wasn't being done. It's trying to answer a question, isn't it?
Yeah.
Sometimes I think a lot of, when you sort of listen to podcasts and you talk to people that have started businesses, a lot of people are trying to answer questions maybe that they feel are unanswered.
Yeah.
And for me, I was like, this could be something a little bit different that's not being done, not that I'd seen anyway. And it went from there.
Yeah. And so, how many sites have you got now?
I think we're just under 20 now.
Yeah.
I think we post-COVID. COVID was tough.
Yeah.
There was some we lost some members invariably. People have bills to pay and all the rest of it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that we've shut a few bits and pieces down sites wise just to try and consolidate.
Yep.
But as a whole, I think we're just under 20. I think at one point we were 26, maybe 27, and we had a franchise over in Cambridge as well, which has gone recently. It got sold recently. So, I mean, I was at sessions last night, and I still enjoy, cracking the whip at a session. All this time later, I still enjoy doing it. And I'd actually say if I stopped doing it at any point in my life, I'd really miss it. I get something from it myself, I think.
That's brilliant. It's brilliant that you have the energy. You still have the energy for that. And do you ever have a moment where you sort of, if you go back to where you were 15 years ago and you were starting it out, do you think that you sit back and think, yeah, this is great what we've achieved? Or do you still sort of have to almost pinch yourself or question and not really see what you've achieved? I don't know if that makes sense, but I know
what you're saying.
Yeah.
I think I don't think we're great at looking back and patting. We're not very good at patting ourselves on the back.
Mm-hmm.
We just try and crack on, I think.
Yeah.
As best we can, and try and maintain. I think growing something's one thing.
Yeah.
Right, and getting out there, and that was the game plan. And when you've done it, you then got to maintain it, which is a completely different ball game, and manage it.
Yep.
Which comes with its own challenges. So there are two. I think the growth bit was really exciting, and the creative bit, and I really like that bit.
Yep.
Even the bit during COVID, it's like that creative bit of, well, you've got to try and get yourself over there.
Yep.
And I think people with a creative mind are like, I'm going to get over there.
Yep.
No matter what, if I go underneath it, over the top of it,
100%.
I'm going to get there.
Yeah.
And I think you've got, what I've learned in some of my time in business is that not everybody thinks like that.
No.
And I think you've got to have some of that to get yourself to where you need to be.
Yep.
That's vital. But I think the first bit of getting out there is tough, but then also you've then got to manage. And maybe looking a little bit of hindsight, I think I like the creative bit more than some of the day-to-day management, being honest.
And with that, is there been any point where you're just like, I haven't got what it takes to get us to that next level? Like you mentioned about, you kind of love the startup bit, right? Because that's when your creative juices are flowing compared to momentum. But have you ever questioned yourself and your abilities?
Oh yeah, I don't think there's many people that again, I think it's part of the process of putting a business up and then creating stuff within a business. So if you're trying to diversify slightly, again, not coming away from your purpose, I think that's really important.
Mm-hmm.
And not becoming too, detached from your purpose. But I think you've got to have a little bit of diversity to one. There's a niggle in me and Glynn at the minute about evolving the business, but making sure we're doing it properly.
Yeah.
So we've had some ideas for quite a long period of time to try and evolve the business and push it forward. So slightly tweaking the offerings, so we're offering more to the membership base, and parting with some of our, I guess, expertise on outdoor training in the last sort of 20 odd years between us. But we argue about what that looks like, but that's in the nicest possible way. We were talking about this recently, sort of a bit of a chat sort of into the new year, and it's like, so my version, as an example, my version of a boot camp early on was far and away compared to what Glynn's version of a boot camp was, right?
Yep.
And his version was a lot more accurate. I was very clinical when we first started and trying to be a bit too kind of fitnessy.
Yeah.
Where he was like, no, we need to and somewhere in the middle is where the magic happens, right? It's he leaning more into the way he wanted to do things, the rustic sort of boot camp side of things. But when we do things, I think it's that mix of our ideas and our, the way that we look at things that's important.
Yeah.
So at the moment we're looking at different workouts with maybe like a strength-based session and some hybrid stuff that's particularly popular at the minute, which does make me laugh because really, we've been running a business for nearly 20 years that's a blend of running, strength and body weight.
100%.
It's not common now. Like we've been doing this a long time, and it's like I'm absolutely buzzing that the fitness industry started to go that way because we've always been like, what should you be about? Like, we've always been about being able to run an half decent sort of 3 to 5K.
Yep.
And being able to pull and push your own body weight effectively, which again, it goes back to base training in the military. Glynn's background, it makes loads of sense, right? That you're then operationally fit or whatever.
Yeah.
All the other stuff will start to look after. So you can do those things. All the other stuff starts to look after itself.
Yeah. 100%.
Versus, you go back 10 years ago, there was a massive dial into, bodybuilding where aesthetics was the focus.
Yeah.
And your health and well-being was kind of down there somewhere.
Yeah.
Absolute non-contender. So dialing back to an element where, health and fitness and well-being's more of a consideration, that's much more in line with what we are.
Yeah.
And the message that we've always given.
Yeah.
We've been quite steadfast, to be fair, in our whole time doing this.
Yeah.
But there's definitely, sorry, I've gone off topic a little bit there, but there's definitely a mix with me and Glynn where it's his version of it, my version of it, and somewhere in the middle is where the creative bit and that bit's the magic happens, I think.
Yeah, I was going to say where the magic happens, and I think that's the great thing. And just as being a single business owner, of not having that person to bat things with that you have with Glynn, whether it's a rant or an argument or
listen,
what.
If you the amount of times I dread to think, if you got a stat where me and Glynn over the last 20 years have ranted to each other on the phone in hours, it would be frightening. But somewhere in there, it's really important.
Yeah. Because
no one feels the same way about it. No one's got that emotional connection to it. It's, in some ways, it feels like an extension of yourself, which I know is not a good thing.
Yeah.
And I have tried to work on that a little bit, and I'm going to have to work on that some more because I know it's not healthy.
Wean yourself up.
Yeah. It's not,
Yeah.
It's not a good thing, but I guess it's part of being passionate about what you do, right?
Yeah, definitely. And usually as we come to time, usually ask one last question, and my question would be, what would you, if you were to do this all over again, or you were chatting to your younger self, not saying that you're old or anything, but
I feel like there's a dig in there somewhere, to be honest.
We're the same age, so I can't comment. What would that advice be?
God, that's a really tough one, isn't it? That's a really tough one. It's a good question as well. You've asked me some good questions. It's got me thinking. I think when you ask things sometimes, I always use myself as a reference point. And there are things that your parents say to you, if you're lucky and you had, you know, good mum and dad. There are things that your parents say to you that ring in your ears. And my dad always used to say to me, whatever you end up doing in life, make sure you enjoy it.
Mm-hmm.
Make sure you enjoy it and you like what you do, because you end up doing it for a long time. And that always sat with me. And I think it would be along those lines, but also having some belief to kind of believe in what you're doing. You know, if you're passionate about something and you know, you've got some belief in what it is you're offering, whether it's like a service-based industry or whatever it is you're doing, I think having self-belief in what you do is huge. Because like if you take that into a sporting arena,
Mm-hmm.
you know, like someone that performs sport-wise, it's night and day between someone that believes in themselves and someone that doesn't. That can be the difference between success and failure.
Completely.
And I think in business, it's the same rule of thumb that's true. I think you need to have some belief in what you're doing to carry yourself through, because if you haven't got that, I'm not so sure that you're going to have what it takes to fulfill anything.
Yeah.
And I think that's really cliche, isn't it? Saying sort of believe in yourself to your younger self, but it's massive.
It's huge, and wise words from your dad for definitely.
It was actually, as I've got older, the older I get, the more he makes sense. But the negative side of it is, you know, that's those cringeworthy moments when you're having a go at one of your kids and you're like, oh my God, my dad used to say that to me.
Yeah, yeah.
So it comes. The good advice comes with a bit of a little bit of a dark side to it as well. Along that, I think when you sort of see yourself sort of doing things that your parents used to do or say stuff that your parents used to do, but I think that's part and parcel, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, I think it's not for anything in business, as I'm sure you know you can attribute as well. It's not for the faint-hearted, I think.
100%.
And sometimes people, me included, actually, went into business blind and naive, but willing nevertheless. So I think do you know what? On that point as well, just to round it up, I guess, like the naivety side of it and going into, if I knew what I was getting myself into, I'm not sure, because it's hard. It's really hard, but sometimes the naivety and the passion carries you through. And
100%.
I think that's, you know, that's a big deal as well.
Yeah, definitely. Well, congratulations, because I think, you know, as being a member of Essex Boot Camp, it's helped me in many different ways. It's helped me make friends in an area that I'm not from. It's helped me from a fitness level. It's helped me mentally and everything. So you're definitely living up to your purpose and values. So thank you.
I think it's still, all this time later, it's still nice to hear that to this day, right? Because when you're all said and done with whatever it is you do in your life, it's like, how many people do I have an impact against in a positive way? Obviously, how many people did we help? And really, that's huge, isn't it?
Yeah.
And for us, that was always like going back to the original question, that was always a massive part of what we were trying to achieve.
Yeah.
So that's like music to my ears and probably a really fitting way to round it up. But listen, thanks very much for having me in. Really enjoyed it. I've had to think about not doing press ups and kettlebell swings and running and in a different way. So thanks for having me in and doing something a little bit different.
And thank you for coming on the show, and thank you everybody for listening today. I'm sure with all these questions, I'm now going to get in trouble with loads of push-ups and sit-ups and everything from you, but we'll wait and see. So thank you, everyone. Love this episode? Don't miss out. Hit subscribe on our YouTube channel and follow us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts and Instagram as we continue to keep it real.